In a recent interview with Sportsnet, Jim Rutherford speaks out on Thatcher, Demko, and Silovs going into next season. He also touches on how the Canucks are actively looking for a third-string goaltender from waivers or a PTO. We're going to break down this and more later on this episode. Before we start, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone that is subscribed. We're trying to reach 4,500 by Sunday, so if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can keep up to date with everything to do with the Canucks. With that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Jim Rutherford speaks out on goalies. Now, obviously, in an interview with Sportsnet, Jim Rutherford spoke out and said, "As you know, I don't talk directly about potential injuries or the perspective of where players are health-wise. I feel good about our goaltending where that is for the start of training camp and the start of the season. I don't even know myself right now. We haven't even done physicals yet, but I know our goaltending and are working hard towards being ready for the start of the season. As an organization, that's what we're hoping for." And Griffin, just looking at this, obviously there's so many reports coming out from Demko, from Silovs, from every injury in the book, it seemed like. What's your thoughts on Jim just coming out and saying, hey, physicals haven't been done yet, but they're working their hardest to get ready for the start of the season?
In a time where almost everybody except for Jim Rutherford, Patrik Allvin, and Rick Tocchet are speaking out on the health of Silovs and Demko, it's been everybody else except for the guys at the top. So having a quote from a guy at the top like Rutherford saying this and coming out and just setting the record straight on what the situation is with them. We're going to await physicals and see what happens there. Once that happens, the team will definitely disclose what's going on with them and be more accurate as far as when their timeline is going to be. But as again, you appreciate the transparency where he's not having too much of telling the truth, but he is telling people like, hey, we got something new coming. We're going to be looking at things. So things are going to be happening as they develop into the preseason. We just have to be patient. But until then, it's just a speculation game as far as what's going on with them and what their timeline is. But some reports have been coming out. But again, it is nice to see that someone like Jim Rutherford is finally coming out and setting the record straight.
And yeah, like Jim said, he continues on to say, regardless of how much work is done in the offseason, there's always something to deal with. And of course, people in the hockey operations have to stay up on top of that and try to stay ahead of the curve. I mean, if a player gets injured working out, if Sheila's case getting ready to play for his country, I can't say that's a surprise. That's just the way life works for an athlete. But I say that both our goaltenders are working hard and doing what it can right now to get ready. And like I said, this was Jim coming out and just speaking on two of these guys, and you hit the nail right on top where you said this is the first one that it seems like from Canucks management to really come out and just speak out on anything to do with these goalies. First, we see the rumors that Demko was out because of an injury, which he was. He goes into the offseason where people are saying that his training and everything was halted due to an off-season surgery. We're seeing these back on lights. We're seeing Silovs having a knee issue. Everything that's happening, it's nice to see the top come out and say, hey, listen, these guys are working out. And Griffin, just from these quotes, do you think they're going to be ready, or do you think this is Jim just kind of coming out and saying, hey, expect for them not to be ready by the start of the season?
I think it's a case of hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I think every Canucks fan should have that mentality going into this season where it is uncertain of what their timelines are going to be. But again, with Silovs, it doesn't seem to be as significant as Demko. But if Demko is being held out, but we do have a positive update on a timeline, I think it's a wise decision. I think Canucks fans can breathe a bit easier if he doesn't play the preseason versus if he doesn't play the preseason because the injury is much more significant than we thought. And then with Silovs, I think if he just takes that time, just sets it out, and maybe this is a time where you try out guys like Elias Pettersson and Net just to see how they do in the preseason, give them their shots just to see if they are ready to do that when this regular season comes around, if they need to make a few starts here and there. I think that would be nice to see Vancouver do, especially to give those top guys a rest a bit. But again, with Vancouver, it's a very interesting situation where there is always something happening. It always seems to be with the goalies. It seems like there's always going to be drama with this, and it seems like there's just more to add to it. But again, Rutherford is telling people, calm down, don't panic just yet. Just prepare for the worst if that does happen, but still hope for the best because this is a team where they have a great medical staff and they're going to be able to get these guys back on the ice as soon as possible.
And the biggest thing is, with these Canucks goaltenders, Casey Smith being in the screenshot I just took from last season, Rutherford says he knows how good these guys are, how good the goalies are, and how important they are. I mean, you look at Thatcher Demko, he had a Vezina caliber season. We see Silovs coming in, going 3-0-1 in the regular season. season before exploding and dominating in the postseason. Having these two guys backstop your team is recipe for success when it comes to the Canucks. But the biggest thing is these guys have to be healthy. And it really gets straight into the second topic, which the Canucks are looking to add a third goalie. Now, we've seen Jim come out and say, hey, we're happy with these guys. We know they're going to perform. But he does continue on and say, we look at it every day from every position. We don't just sit around and think we're all set. We're aware that potentially we may have to take a goaltender off waivers in order to fill a gap for a little bit. The good news for us is we are in a position that we can add a cap-wise. We prefer to stay out of LTIR to start the season. That's important for us, and we're pretty sure we can do that. A PTO could be an option. Now, this is big coming from someone like Jim saying that, hey, we're going to look at available goaltenders. It seems like a trade is not a part of their options. It seems like they're really heavily leading into maybe a PTO or a waiver wire pickup. And when you're really looking at some of the waiver guys, I mean, Antti Raanta is the most experienced with 10 years in the league. You can see Stalock, Martin Jones, Michael Hutchinson, Keith Kincaid, Dustin Tokarski, Malcolm Subban, David Riddick, which I think is a good option as he played great for the LA Kings last year. You can work your way down, and obviously a guy like Jeremy Swayman is not going to be pried from Boston, so I know we want him, but we can't get him. But there's a lot of guys that they could look at on this. And Griffen, when you're looking at this, would you like to see them maybe go out and get a PTO, or would you maybe want them to just wait, see if a team has a place a great goaltender on a waiver claim, and see if the Canucks can snag him?
I think it's going to be an interesting waiting game where it might be one of those 11th hour decisions. I think with those PTOs that they could bring in, I think Raanta is the most appealing one. Like you said, he has the most experience. And Martin Jones, we don't know what his status is. Potentially he's retired, maybe not. But again, there are some appealing names out there. Do they have the room to do it with the cap space that they have left? I don't know. Jim said he doesn't want to start the year on ITLR. That gives him very limited space to deal with. And if you're looking at Tucker Poolman specifically, but again, this is going to be a thing where maybe a team does place a guy on waivers that they can pick up that works for the cap. But again, it's going to be one of those weird waiting games where they might have to make a risky decision at the last second between going out and getting a PTO or making a move off the waiver wire.
Because when you're looking at the Canucks cap, and you kind of brought this up, the projected cap space is under 200,000, but that's not without Tucker Poolman on the LTIR, so this will jump up to just under 3 million in available cap room once he's put onto waivers, once he's put onto LTIR, or once he's traded. Who knows what the Canucks are going to do with him, but it doesn't seem like Poolman will play. So the Canucks do have a lot of room to kind of wiggle with. I mean, when you're going back and looking at some of these guys, if the Canucks do get roughly 2 mil in cap space, all of these guys are basically below that. Obviously, like I said, Jeremy Swayman was making 3.4, but he will not be pried from Boston. So bring on one of these guys on a PTO, maybe on a 1-year deal, something to give them extra leverage going into the offseason, or sorry, into the season. I keep thinking offseason as we feel like we've been in it for about 8 months now. But with the Canucks going into next season, having that third string goaltender, I mean, we've seen it work with a guy like Casey DeSmith coming in as a second goalie, a guy like Silovs coming in as the third. Obviously, Silovs outperformed Casey DeSmith, but getting another veteran, a guy that can backstop maybe a few games. We've seen Casey DeSmith play 29 games during the span. Getting that third goaltender might be huge. And Griffen, if they get a guy, would you rather a guy with a little potential, or maybe just a guy that's a veteran around the league like Antti Raanta?
Give me a veteran all day. I'm tired of the Canucks just throwing these guys and feeding them to the Wolves, hoping they'll sink or swim. We saw it in the playoffs where they got them burned a few times with the case of Niels Alman and Linus Karlsson. You don't want that to happen. Not everyone is going to be able to be ready like Silovs was. I think that was a very rare case. So give those guys the experience in the preseason, but if it comes time to the regular season, bring in a veteran, someone who can be reliable. You don't want a liability at one of the most important positions on the ice. So you want to have a guy who's going to be reliable. It's one less thing to worry about when there's a lot of other things that the Canucks have on their plate heading into this season.
And that's the biggest thing. What's your guys' thoughts on everything Jim said? I know it's the first time it feels like any Canucks guy has spoke out on any of the goalie situation. What's your thoughts on Thatcher, Demko, and Silovs? I feel like we've talked about it a million times in the past 2 weeks. And who would you like the Canucks to maybe go after on a PTO or on waivers if a team does have to place someone? Let us know down in the comments. But speaking on comments, we'll get everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And the comment today is coming from two people. The first one coming from Mike. You guys are looking so natural. Good job, boys. First off, Mike, it's awesome to hear this. I'm from Newfoundland, so we're not known for talking fluently to start with. So shout out to you, Mike, and also a shout out to Fabled Hero. He said Lankinen could be a nice option depending on what he's looking for contract-wise. Ideally, Denmark gets as much rest as possible to be fresh for the playoffs, and I feel like every Canucks fan feels the exact same way. But if you guys enjoyed this video and you want to leave a comment on everything we talked about, you can go down and leave a comment, and you could be like Mike and Fable today and be comment of the day in tomorrow's video. Way down there, leave a like, subscribe. We're trying to reach 4,500 by Sunday, so make sure to join the Canucks Digest community, and if you don't want to join, that's completely fine as well. Just happy to be here, and hopefully we see you in another video. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host Griffin, and take care.